adults. After each presentation, there will be time for the presenters to answer any questions that you may have. Following all three presentations, we will take a few minutes for any additional questions that you might think of. Please stand when you ask your question. I will try to repeat it using the microphone so that we'll all be able to hear it. We will not vote this evening on the winner, but rather at our final meeting on November 14th. And now I would like to introduce our first presenter, Matt Riley, Chief Operating Officer for the Jordan Porco Foundation, to talk about their proposal on suicide prevention and training at bringing the 4 What's Next program to an estimated 300 middle and high school aged youth in our 4 communities. And will also provide a QPR, question, persuade, and respond, training to 120 adults. Please join me in welcoming Matt to the podium.
Hi, can everybody hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, just a quick mic check. All right, well, hi everyone, good evening.
Good evening.
Pleasure to be here. As Christine said, my name is Matt Riley, and I am proud to be the Chief Operating Officer of the Jordan Porco Foundation. I first want to say thank you so much for having us in tonight. We are honored, and I want to express our sincere gratitude for being named as a finalist for Catalyst Fund support. You know, I joined the Jordan Porco Foundation after I lost my 15-year-old daughter, Jenna, to suicide, actually in 2012, 7 years ago to the day tomorrow, coincidentally. And at the Jordan Porco Foundation, you know, that's really who we are. We are a collection of individuals that have lost children and other loved ones to suicide and have this overwhelming desire to help prevent other families having to deal with the tragedy of suicide as we have. Our mission at the Jordan Porco Foundation is to prevent suicide, promote mental health, and create a message of hope for young adults, teenagers, and adolescents. And we accomplish this mission by challenging the stigma associated with the subject that's so prevalent in our society, by talking openly about mental health and suicide, by offering engaging and uplifting programming that emphasizes peer-to-peer messaging, which we think is so terribly important, and also promoting help-seeking behaviors and coping skills by educating our youth about the risk factors and the warning signs of suicide. So we're incredibly proud that our program distribution has been so successful and has grown so much over the years since we started in 2011. We're actually operating now in 42 states across the country, and nearly 100,000 young adults and teenagers have participated in our programming. But we also know that, you know, that work is really the tip of the iceberg. We've got a tremendous amount of work in front of us. Should we be fortunate enough to receive your trust and your support, our intent is to positively influence the lives and future success of the youth in the communities of New Britain, Southington, Plainville, and Berlin. We'll accomplish this by implementing our program, starting with our 4 What's Next program at 11 locations in those communities for a full year. And you heard earlier that, you know, the minimum impact would be 300 middle to high school aged youth. But really the potential impact of that program alone is over 1,000. In fact, that impact is the entirety of the student populations at those locations that we will be delivering the program, and it is only limited by their capacity to deliver the program. So the impact will be much greater. In addition to For What's Next, we will deliver our Fresh Check Day program, our signature program, at Central Connecticut State University, where we've been operating for several years, and have seen an average annual attendance of over 260 undergrad students. We also know that it takes all of us to participate, and as a result, we also propose to provide 4 community trainings to include QPR, which stands for Question, Persuade, Refer, which is a national evidence-based best practice, and also prevention and postvention trainings for first responders to include fire department personnel, law enforcement personnel, school officers and administration, as well as the community at large, with a minimum participation and impact of 120. But we hope it'll be far greater. The Catalyst request for proposal clearly identifies the imperatives that you all have identified need to be addressed on this issue. They include protective factors among children and young adults, improving the knowledge and skills in suicide prevention within the community, and increased postvention planning. We propose to meet these imperatives head on. The For What's Next program is an evidence-informed, upstream approach to suicide prevention. It provides young adults and teenagers with the psychological resiliency skills to handle stress, anxiety, depression, and distress by teaching them self-advocacy, coping, and help-seeking skills, and how to apply those skills in order to better manage and ultimately reduce the factors that often lead to suicide. Fresh Check Day creates an inclusive environment that facilitates sharing and open dialogue about mental health among young adults in the college setting. This educates the students on the resources that are available to them on their campus, in the community, and nationally. And if you permit me, I'd like to share a very quick story that I think kind of underscores the efficacy of the Fresh Check Day program. A couple of years ago, I was fortunate enough to attend the Fresh Check Day program at Fairfield University. And normally, the Fresh Check Day program is done outdoors. We do it that way to encourage more participation from the student body in general. Well, on this particular occasion, we had inclement weather, and as a result, the program was moved indoors. And as a result of that, attendance was down, and I was disappointed. And I approached the Director of Counseling Services at the university to express my disappointment. And she said to me, "Matt, don't worry. I want to share with you that our counseling services staff have been approached by more students at this program than we've seen walk into the Counseling Service Center within the last 6 months," which absolutely astounded me. And I asked her, "Why do you think that is?" And she said, "Because what you've managed to do with the Fresh Check Day program is to create a safe, stigma-free environment. So the students at this space and time feel confident to share with us their struggles and be open about that. Congratulations." And that about made my whole month, probably. In addition to For What's Next and Fresh Check Day, our proposed community training sessions will help communities formulate effective postvention protocols, strategies, and plans. These sessions will be led by experts in the field with years of experience, drawing on the expertise of the Connecticut Suicide Advisory Board, of which the Jordan Porco Foundation has been an engaged participant for many years. In terms of the outcomes we expect to achieve with our proposal, we will engage all stakeholders in the community in the fight to prevent suicide by facilitating open dialogue about the program and motivating participation at all levels. We will educate participants about the warning signs and the resources available and teach young adults the skills, as I said, to combat anxiety, stress, depression, and distress, and arm them with the tools to employ those help-seeking behaviors. It is critical that all stakeholders and individuals utilizing our program agree to provide feedback on their efforts on an ongoing basis. Each component of our work, For What's Next, Fresh Check Day, and the community trainings for QPR and postvention will involve both pre- and post-participation surveys using a Likert-type response platform that will provide us with key data, giving us both a before and after illustration of the knowledge that participants have gained by participating in the program. We will then analyze and report on that data, providing the stakeholders with data specific to their locations and program, as well as data at an aggregated level that we will provide back to the Catalyst Committee. As far as the budget is concerned, we are requesting $10,800 from the Catalyst Fund as a sole provider of financial support for this project. This amount will cover the costs of licensing and training associated with the For What's Next program, as well as the direct costs associated with the QPR postvention community trainings, and also the promotion of those trainings to ensure that we have adequate participation levels. In addition, we've included an in-kind provision for the delivery of the Fresh Check Day program at CCSU, as well as a portion of the indirect costs associated with the delivery of the QPR and postvention trainings. As far as continuation beyond the grant period of 1 year, through our data collection efforts and reporting efforts, we aspire to demonstrate to you the empirical value of the programs to the stakeholders involved in coordinating the delivery of it and the participants taking part in it. We anticipate that as a result, those schools, organizations, and community members will see significant value and seek to underwrite the continuation of these programs, both in terms of human as well as financial capital. We firmly believe that we will demonstrate a significant return on investment, and in so doing will realize continuation into the foreseeable future, making it a self-sustainable program supported by each community within itself. In closing, I just want to again express our sincere appreciation for being considered for your support. We are confident that together with the Catalyst Fund, we can make a difference in our fight against suicide, strengthening our communities, and helping to ensure that our youth are better equipped with the life skills they need to have successful futures. Thank you very much.
Does anyone have any questions? Yes.
You talk about the importance of peer education and peer-to-peer messaging. Could you talk a little bit more about the role of the peers, how they're trained, or what programs they participate in as facilitators and that kind of thing?
Absolutely. Thank you for bringing that up.
So, did everyone hear that?
No.
The question was regarding the roles of the peers within the program.
Yeah, I often say that in this work, if you've done a good job as a parent or as an educator, a teacher perhaps, or a counselor, of creating an environment that's safe for your child to come to you and express that they're struggling or they're in distress, that is wonderful. Because you heard as a theme throughout my presentation, it takes a community, it really does. But the reality and it's not just me saying it, but what the science and the research suggests is when kids are in distress, they turn to their friends first. And I shared with you about my daughter Jenna, and I will tell you quickly that when she died, we had no idea that she was struggling. And after she passed, I found her journal, and 2 seconds in, it was clearly evident that this was a child that was in major need of professional help. I then had, after the fact, the opportunity to talk to her friends. And her friends confided in me that they did know something was wrong, but they didn't know what to do. And they didn't want to betray her trust and privacy. So we are very much in favor of peer-to-peer. In terms of the program specifically, the Fresh Check Day program is actually run by student groups that are on the campus. So for Fresh Check Day, students that are participating are involved in interactive activities at a series of booths on campus that are run by student groups. So for an example, LGBTQ often runs a booth. Many times an ROTC organization will run a booth. Gay Straight Alliance will run a booth. So there's a variety of booths, counseling services. And we know that having students involved and providing the information to the students that are going through is taken with a bit more credibility than if it were an adult, for example, lecturing to students. So that's one. As far as the For What's Next program, we're always very careful to say that the For What's Next program is facilitated by a trusted, responsible adult that is good with teenagers. And the reason we stress facilitated is because that individual needs to be skilled in the art of creating dialogue amongst students. The For What's Next program is meant to provide a framework for students to interact with each other so that they can, for lack of better wording, sort of riff off each other and gain valuable ideas from each other. Does that help answer the question?
Any other questions? Yes.
You mentioned that your hope is that the communities will each see the value in your programs and find other sources of funding, since the Catalyst program is a single-year grant. What has your experience been in other communities where you've had similar situations, where you started with a one-year funding source?
The question was regarding the funding and how to continue the funding after the Catalyst year is up.
So we have seen throughout our history about an 85% retention rate on all programming that we've ever done. Our attrition rate generally falls into the category of limited resources in terms of human resources rather than financial resources. So we're very proud of that fact, and we think it underscores, organizations' interest to keep the program running. I'll give you an example. With UConn, we've been working with UConn for about 8 years now. We are one program there in a spectrum of programs that they roll out every year for the benefit of their students. Over the years, we've seen them roll in and roll out a wide variety of programs, so we're very proud of the fact that we've been one of the ones that have stuck with them. I think that speaks to the popularity of the program among students, but among faculty as well.
Any other questions? Yes.
You said that, excuse me, you would be at 11 sites in the 4 towns, impacting a minimum of 300 students. Can you talk about what those sites are and how you would pick them? And
I can a little bit.
Okay.
The question was regarding the sites, the 11 different sites. What is the process, how you pick them, and how is it implemented?
Right, so we do have, which I shared with Jolene, letters of support from the Consolidated School District of New Britain, and she asked me, you have their support, what why do you need funding to give them a program they already have? And I said, I think this is semantics, Jolene. What we've seen from them is they've given us a letter of intent. In other words, they're telling us if we were to receive Catalyst funding, they will pick up and deliver the program. And we're in the process of reaching out to remaining locations in the 4 towns to ensure that the program is delivered. We are confident in securing those locations because, one, we know everywhere we go and talk about the program, the demand is through the roof. I've had several meetings over the last couple of weeks, and I'm very tired, I can tell you. And usually the interest in taking the program on is fairly instantaneous. So we do have 7 locations in New Britain specifically that have indicated that they want to move forward with the program, pending the outcome of a decision on the Catalyst Fund. Beyond that, we are in discussions with other organizations in the remaining towns. We want to be as equitable as we possibly can. I know you. How are you? As equitable as we can. So we hope to spread the love, as it were. That's specific to the Fresh Tech, the 4 What's Next program. The Fresh Tech Day program is obviously captive audience there. And I think where the community trainings are concerned, there's a need for that as well. So I suspect that we'll be able to do that in a community hall of some sort. And then part of the funding that we're requesting is for the promotion of that community training to attract participants to attend. Does that help? Does that answer the question? Okay. Sort of.
Thank you. For the sake of time, we will have the next presenter, and at the conclusion of the program, we'll certainly open the floor for more questions from all 3 presenters. Our second presenter tonight is Valerie Laputra, the Young Adult Coordinator for the National Alliance on Mental Health. NAMI is seeking funding to provide living work applied suicide intervention skills training, ASIST, in all 4 communities.
Hi everybody, my name is Valerie Laputra and I'm the Young Adult Coordinator over at NAMI Connecticut. NAMI Connecticut is the state chapter of the National Alliance on Mental Illness, which is the leading grassroots organization dedicated to building better lives for those affected by mental illness, which is essentially everything. As the Young Adult Coordinator, part of my role is training other young people in recovery, whether they have lost somebody to suicide, they themselves are struggling, to train them into leading and presenting about mental health and talking about their personal story, as well as facilitating peer-run support groups for those who've been affected by mental health conditions. So I'm really happy to be here tonight, especially during National Suicide Prevention Month, to be able to talk to you about our Young Adult programming and why we're seeking funding for the Catalyst program. NAMI Connecticut focuses on the 3 main pillars of education, advocacy, and support. So we educate community members, law enforcement, teachers, anybody who's willing to listen about mental health and to understand the warning signs of mental illness and suicide as well. We advocate at the local and federal and state level. And we also provide support groups, over 60 support groups for families, for their loved ones, and especially for young adults, a program that was developed by and for young people living with mental health challenges. All of our programs are no cost, so that is why we often are seeking funding from donors who really believe in our mission. So for our proposal, we would like to offer the ASSIST training, which is called Applied Suicide Intervention Skills Training. It's the world's leading suicide intervention training. On your tables, each person received a paper a little bit about ASSIST. It was developed by Living Works. And the 2 trainers that we would hope to be able to provide this training are actually NAMI young adults, people with lived experience. So we are looking to train in all of the locations, Berlin, New Britain, Plainville, and The assist model is a 2-day training, so it's pretty intense. But what it does is it doesn't just teach about the warning signs of suicide, it also teaches how to intervene and how to develop a safe plan and connecting those people who are at risk to supports. So we believe that with the training for the assist model, those in the community who will be trained in the model will be able to link those who are at risk, especially youth, to the support groups that we offer. We also have in New Britain at CCSU, Central Connecticut State University, a student navigator who connects young people who might be struggling with their mental health to services on site, as well as having a support group already established on the campus. We chose this model because it is an evidence-based practice. It is on the SAMHSA's National Registry of Evidence-Based Support Practices. And we want to be able to offer it to the community at large. So anybody who's working with youth, young adults themselves, family members, anybody who wants to help save a life to be able to take this training. We believe that this will also help increase the protective factors because all of our young adult programs that we have for support groups talk about life skills, things that young adults are going through on a daily level. And the young adults that are facilitating have been there before. By training all these community members in this prevention model, we believe that it will help raise awareness about suicide and mental health and decrease the stigma about mental illness and suicide, which is a conversation that we don't often have, especially for young people. We know that this opportunity will help us talk about the warning signs about suicide, normalizing the conversation so people can get the support that they need before it becomes a problem. And with all the community members who will be trained in this model, they'll be able to link others to resources, clinical and non-clinical supports as well. We will be offering through Living Works, they have their own feedback evaluation and reports that need to be done by the facilitators and trainers. So we will be working with Living Works to be able to offer this feedback form, as well as developing our own surveys to talk with the community members that have been trained in this model. With the people who are trained at the 6-month benchmark, we'll be doing a focus group to see the challenges and successes of using the ASSIST model and how we can improve it in the future. We will also be working with the Connecticut Suicide Advisory Board. NAMI Connecticut sits on the advisory board, so we'll be able to report back on what we've learned and how we can get more people involved. And we also offer recommendations for anyone to recruit to come to these trainings. We also will be working with the Department of Public Health to track any death data and attempt data, so we can look for students and young people that might be at risk to connect them to more resources. We'll also be able to track based on how many people are coming to our support groups. We offer routine support group training, so we would like to increase that number of groups within the area as well. Most of the Catalyst funding would be going towards the kits that are involved for this training, as well as for the time that will be put in. While we do have generous donors who help support our mission, we are most likely looking for the Catalyst to support us solely. We also use funds from our NAMI Walk, which helps promote mental wellness, to help support with this funding. NAMI Connecticut also already has many versions of education programs that are nationally recognized and evidence-based. So we would like to incorporate the ASSIST model into our repertoire of education programs specifically for suicide intervention skills. And then we'll be working with target donors who want to continue this mission. We have an affiliate located in the Farmington Valley area who would be also willing to work with us to continue to recruit members to take this training and support us for the future. I just want to thank you again for supporting us tonight, and it's a pleasure to be here. And I just am so glad that we can prevent suicide and create suicide-safer communities. Thank you.
Do we have any questions? questions from the audience? Yes.
Yep. Could you talk a little more about the target demographic for who would be receiving this training and how you would reach out to them or make them aware of this opportunity?
The question was regarding the target demographic, how would we reach out to train and how do you select it?
We are focusing on members of the community, anyone who works with young people themselves. Our two trainers are young adults in recovery themselves, so it might be a great way to recruit more young people that want to learn. Essentially, we're looking for anyone who really wants to help save a life.
Anyone else? Yes.
Do you have relationships with any of the organizations in the communities to help you with these caregivers that you want to train in order to build that relationship to get this information out there to the community?
The question is regarding the relationships within the community organizations and how do we get the information out?
Our local NAMI affiliate, Farmington Valley, are all members of the community in this area. So many of them work in the communities and have their own relationships to help collaborate. We also have with CCSU, we're working with the Student Disability Center and the Counseling Center, so they would also be able to recruit more people. And then we also work with the Jordan Porco Foundation, and we work with the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention and other community members that are focusing on suicide prevention.
Again, we will take questions at the end if you kind of think of anything. Our final presenter tonight. Our final presenter tonight is Christina Sims. She's the Director of Southington Youth Services. We'll discuss a proposal to strengthen suicide prevention efforts in that community using a three-pronged approach: building assets and protecting factors among youth, professional development for educators, and engaging the community. Please join me in welcoming Christina.
Can you guys hear me? Yeah? Okay. I really don't like microphones, so I'm going to do my best. But I first have to say thank you to my counterpart who is with me. Her name is Jen DeSenza. She's the Director of School Counseling for the middle school and high school in our district, and I want to thank her for being here. I also want to thank the Catalyst Fund because you recognize what an important topic it is, suicide prevention. I was talking with Matt, who is at my table, and one of the things I shared with him is that I have found across the board that the more people that I talk to that work in suicide prevention have at one point maybe suffered a loss of their own, and it's very near and dear to their heart. I have also had a loss in my family, and it was about 7 months ago, so I'm still a little fresh. And as I was sharing with Matt, you put it in a little box in occasions like this, but it helps you push forward with a more passionate approach. Because for me, the more education I do for myself, the more I feel like I can reach out and help others. And it's part of a healing process for me and a prevention process for those in my community. So I am the Director of Youth Services. I have worked with the Jordan Porco Foundation before in attending their For What's Next seminar to learn more about the product. And I have also worked with NAMI Connecticut, so I am honored to be in great company tonight. I'm the Director of Youth Services, as I said. I've been there for going on 4 years. And one of the things that I've learned through my position is that we have an incredible prevention coalition in my community. Now, our proposal focuses a lot on Southington, but that is where our prevention coalition has focused a lot. A prevention coalition is probably about, it's over 10 years old, so maybe give or take 13 years. And it started with a rash of suicides, and I think rash is probably not the word I'm looking for, but there was risky behaviors happening, and there was quite a few kids who were taking their lives. And it was very drastic in our community, and it hit us very hard. And although I wasn't in this work, one of the students at that time was somebody who I worked with very closely. And it took students in our community to come to the adults and say, you need to do something. Our friends, they need help. And we can only do so much, so please help them. So that's how our coalition, our prevention coalition, got started. It continues to work on protective factors and building assets in kids. And we do that through the ABC, which is Asset-Based Classrooms Initiative, which has grown and developed over the past years in our school district. We are very lucky that the prevention model that we use requires us to use the 13 different sectors in our town. So when we have a coalition meeting, there's 32 people around the table. Jen is one of them. And right now, the coalition works very much on substance abuse prevention and building up protective factors and reducing risk factors by building assets in youth. We have followed the Search Institute's 40 developmental assets, and through our past 10 years, we've received money from the federal government for drug-free communities. That's particularly why we focused on substance abuse prevention. However, what brought us to the table was risk-taking behaviors among youth, and how can we help youth that are asking for help. We have taken a focus now and shift our focus not away from substance abuse prevention, but to include suicide prevention. I personally believe that I have now taken it on as a cause because it has touched me in a very different kind of way than it had previously. So we are asking the Catalyst Foundation, or the Catalyst Fund, to help us enhance our protective factors and help us build up our Asset-Based Classrooms Initiative by continuing our work. We want to not only continue to work with the students, but also work with the families and help them to understand their capacities as the first line of prevention for their families. One of the things that we are doing this weekend, for example, about getting communities together, and this is why our 13 sector approach works very well, because we're able to work with the police department, the Board of Education, the interfaith clergy system. We're able to work with them and get them together to do a community forum. One of the things that we are offering at our community forum that we call Parent University is QPR training. We will be hosting a QPR training, but we've had to adjust it a little bit based on the amount of people that are coming and what the subject matter will be and the population that's coming. So it's a little bit different than QPR. That was our initial goal, but we did something that would match the population a little bit better. One of the things that we are hoping to do is the peer support, as Matt mentioned. I attended the For What's Next seminar when they came in and they talked to us about the program. And it's interesting because I talked to Marissa from the Porco Foundation, and I'm very interested in working with them. So, when Matt sat down, I said, depending on however this goes, please know that we have written that into our grant because we believe in the peer-to-peer support. Many of the students that I work with, their peers know a heck of a lot more than their parents do. And I am lucky because I'm a counselor and they trust me, and I'm not the one that's coming to them to set up or be strict with them. They're coming to talk to me. So maybe I get a little bit more than their parents do, but their friends are really the resource. I was talking to 2 young ladies before, and unfortunately I have to ask the question in my role, are you thinking about taking your life? Are you thinking about committing suicide? And to have this conversation is a difficult conversation to have. And when we got to the point of, I want to help you, her friend who was sitting next to her said, don't send her to that place, they don't do anything. They don't help her. We help her. So there is a need for a peer-to-peer support component and for kids to know where their boundaries are, how far they can help, and when do they need to ask for help to get them that next level of help. So the For What's Next program is really an incredible program. We want to do it through a collaborative effort because that's what's worked for our Prevention Coalition thus far. We plan to work with students, community members in our different sectors, parents, and educators. We have a large component of the proposal is to train. Because it is a one-year fund, we believe that the most we can do with that one-year fund is to get as much training and broaden our cadre of people who can support youth in our town as best we can with the funds that we have. I know that I have worked with Jen and the support staff at the high schools and the middle schools, and they're very open to asking for training and getting the support that they need so that they can then help their students. Again, I said that we were going to increase our protective factors, and how we're going to judge based on what we've done so far and how successful we are is that every year, regardless of funding, we find a way to do a survey that helps us address the 7th, 9th, and 12th, the 7th, 9th, and 12th grade population, and lets them self-report on how many assets they have. We do a survey that is administered by the Search Institute, and we get those results back, and that's how we plan our next few years of our plans of action on how we are going to address the issues that the kids are identifying in town. I will tell you, after we got back our research, not only do we have to work on the substance issues surrounding marijuana and vaping, because those are on the rise, but what we found most alarming is how the kids are feeling about themselves. And our focus this year in our building assets is all about building those internal assets and helping kids build up their self-esteem, have a positive adult, a strong adult to go to, realizing your own personal power and your capacity. So that's where our focus is at this point with our Prevention Coalition. Some of the things that we are doing right now that are non-funded or are in partnership with our collaborative sectors is the mentoring program. We have a partnership with the police department and the Board of Education to offer a mentoring program. At this point, it's only 8 students, but we hope to grow that because we need to offer more mentors to our struggling 7th grade students. And that's where we start with that program. We do our ABC classrooms that start in elementary school and continue on through middle school, and then we change their role as they go into their high school year. But what we really hope to do with this Catalyst Fund is the true nature of a Catalyst Fund, is start a movement, start that community education component, start that parent education component, where parents understand their role as the first line of defense and aren't afraid to ask that question. Have you had thoughts of committing suicide or taking your life? Are you okay? Or the different ways to ask, are you okay, without just straight asking, are you okay? This work is so important in our community and in all the communities. I know we have a focus on Southington, but we do hope to invite others to participate. We're not closing our doors to anyone else, but our coalition's real strong focus is with our school system and making sure our kids are safe. We have a strong reputation in our community for delivering positive results. Our community coalition has been in existence, as I said, 13 years. And in the assets that we have been able to address through our reducing access, education, and policy change has shown a dramatic improvement with our survey results. And that's where we feel that is our evidence-based results that we can build upon. And so that's what we plan to continue to do.
Thank you. Are there any questions specifically? Paul?
Just, I see that there are 4 professional development workshops to be provided to 30 educators and 10 community professionals.
Yeah.
So is that going to be just specific to teachers in Southington? And where are you going to get how do you choose the 30 educators and 10 community professionals?
Sure.
So the question was regarding the professional development of the participants in this program. Will they be Southington teachers, and how do you go about choosing who's going to be involved in professional development?
Sure. So what we have done so far, one of the things that we have done in the past is we've offered professional development at the request of the Board of Education. And we find the speaker. We have another partnership with another organization for substance abuse specifically, and we would follow that same model. We would find the appropriate presenter, and we invite the Southington school systems first. We wouldn't necessarily limit it to 30, but that would be the minimum, and that's based on other showings that we've had before with paraprofessionals, support staff. We're putting together one for grief and trauma right now. It's a model that works for our community, and so it's a model we're going to replicate. We would invite other people. For example, this training that we're doing on Saturday for Parent University, once we gave Southington residents the first opportunity to enroll because we had a limited capacity, we then put it out to other listservs, and we were able to recruit other people who wanted to attend the the 9 different trainings we're hosting on Saturday. Does that answer your
Yes,
question?
thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions for Christina? Yes.
So since you're kind of making the transition from substance abuse to suicide prevention, how would you reach out to new parents and different people in the community that only recognize you for working with substance abuse? How do you plan to get them in, to get that information and spread it?
The question is, since in the past you've been working with substance abuse, how do you reach out to people who just know you through that venue and really publicize how you're working with risk-taking and suicide?
So the benefit that we have is, I'm the Director of Youth Services, and the Prevention Coalition falls under the department. So we have decided, so that way, we're going to use the prevention model and the prevention model framework, but we're not going to list it under necessarily the STEPS coalition because of that purpose. Because it's branded, so to speak, and known in our community for substance abuse prevention. However, to ignore why it first came together as a coalition would not be the right thing to do. And because we have had several students who have then gone through some suicide ideation and knowing that it's prevalent still in our community and growing in our state, we have decided to do it under the umbrella of youth services, following the same prevention framework.
Any other questions for Christina? Are there any other questions for any other presenters? Thank you, Christina.
Thank you.
I know there was a lot of information presented tonight, so I encourage all of you to go home, read the proposals, and process some of the information. This is very serious work. And if you have any questions, please email Jolene, and she certainly can get back to you with the questions specifically you might have when you go home regarding the 3 proposals. So thank you. Dave?
Thank you very much. Big round of applause for our 3 agencies and the presenters. And also to Gary and Chris for leading our program today. We really appreciate it. Thank you all for coming tonight. We hope you've enjoyed the program this evening. Know that by being part of this program, you're part of something bigger. Your contribution makes you part of the Community Foundation family, which means you're part of everything that we do in the community, and we really appreciate that support. Catalyst members are encouraged to bring friends, family, and anyone interested in our program to our next meeting so they can experience our process and possibly even sign on as a member for next year. Now, our sponsorships for Catalyst are getting very, very strong, and due to a recent new sponsorship of Catalyst, we will have a special drawing next meeting for the member who has brought in the most new members. Now, so strong is this sponsorship that we're giving away a new car. And I probably shouldn't announce who the sponsor is, but Matchbox and Mattel are very excited about this. I understand. Someone tell me you could have a dune buggy, a Corvette, a Jeep. You get a BMW. You get to choose whatever car you want. So stay tuned and keep bringing those friends in. Thanks also to Elizabeth here from Paradigm for doing the videotaping of videotaping. Boy, did I just date myself, huh? Digital recording of this evening's program. And it's been recorded that I just said that, too. Yes, it'll be available on vinyl very soon. Our next meeting is Thursday, November 14th at Shuttle Meadow Country Club. Thanks to an anonymous donor. We have taped tonight's performance. Oh my gosh. I didn't even have a glass of wine tonight. Performance? Presentations. Someone take this mic away. The video, the digital recording of this evening's presentations will be sent to each of you. There'll be a link so you'll be able to view it. You'll be able to check it out and review the presentations before the next meeting. Our finalists will also be available at the November meeting to answer any final questions that you may have before we vote. Last year's grant was awarded to CCARC, and a representative from that organization will join us in November to share how that grant is going. At our final meeting, we will be giving those present an opportunity to weigh in on potential topics for our 2020 program. So begin thinking of topics now that you might be interested in, and those where you think grant funding can make a difference in the communities that we serve. Also, at our November meeting, we'll review the 3 proposals you heard about tonight. We will have a facilitated discussion on the merits of each. Following that discussion period, we will vote to award a $12,500 grant. Finally, it's my pitch for year-end giving. All of you will probably get something in the mail from us soon for our Civic Leadership Fund. Thank you for your consideration of that, or giving to any of the other funds that we've established recently, the Williamson Education Assistance Fund that helps juniors and seniors to finish their college education when they hit those financial rough spots, our Disaster Response Fund, or prepaying for Catalyst. So any of those are appreciated. If you have any additional questions or remarks between now and the November meeting, feel free to call and contact Jolene. I also would like to give a shout out to the best team in the Community Foundation business, Candace, Kayla, Kim, and Jolene tonight. If I hadn't fumbled so many words, I would have said you made me look good, but we're not even going to go there right now. So thank you very much, everybody, for coming.